lesson that I've learned in a book. First off, I'd like to thank the church and Pastor Tim McFarland for giving me the opportunity to speak here tonight. It's a true testament of the culture Mr. McFarland has created around the chapel, something you don't find at very many universities across the country. A long time ago, I read something that said, quote, "Failure is the passageway to success," end quote. And in my head, I was in complete disbelief. Other times in life, I've heard things like, "What doesn't kill us makes us stronger." And again, hearing that, I thought in exact terms and wanted to argue that that quote was incorrect. There's one more I remember, and I heard it like this: "It doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get up." I can see some chuckles already from those three relatively corny motivational quotes, but that last one was the first tiny little light bulb that ever went off in my brain regarding this focus. So as life continued on, I had somewhat of an idea, but I never really knew what being resilient meant. Until one day, I was fortunate enough to watch and later read the greatest, funniest, most emotional storyline I have ever seen up until that point. Finding Nemo. For those unfamiliar with the story, there was a clownfish named Marlin who all he had in his life was his son Nemo. After Nemo goes missing, he does everything in his power to make sure he finds his son again. Now, I won't ruin the movie for those who are just itching to watch it later tonight, but it was my first taste of witnessing something overcome something. It was the coolest thing I had ever seen. There's many historic examples of resiliency in our world, through employment, family and friends, personal health issues, and as well within sports. There's many that we can talk about and give credit to where credit is due. But what makes that certain person or group handle adversity so well? In 1834, Thomas Carlyle began Volume 1 of his piece on the French Revolution, then eventually 2 and 3. In 1835, he shared his completed draft with John Stuart Mill. It's been said that Mill's servant mistaken the document for waste paper and threw it into the fire. With no second copy or prior notes, Carlyle spent 2 more years rewriting the volumes. How did he do that? Could you do that? Studies on how people adapt to challenges wasn't particularly on researchers' radar till World War II was coming to an end. Professors were strongly passionate in wondering how children in the middle of a war with no food or shelter could cope so well with what was taking place. It's fascinating to me as I finally put 2 and 2 together. It's really not always about overcoming challenges to be successful or having to fail before you succeed. Because to you, what's failure? What's succeeding? It's about understanding what's in front of me, good or bad, and deciding what actions I'm going to take in order to reach what I believe I want to reach. There's another aspect that I really pulled together when reading on what I'm talking about. It's understanding the idea of improving every minute, every hour of every single day. Think about that. Thomas Carlyle, the moment he knew his manuscript was forever gone, he took time to grieve, don't get me wrong, but the sooner he started improving from the challenge that just got thrown at him, the sooner he could reach what he believed he wanted to reach. He even was quoted as making somewhat light of the situation, as humorously saying, quote, "Poor manuscript, all except some 4 tattered leaves was destroyed," end quote. I guess that was supposed to be funny back then, but. So improving every minute, every hour, every day of your life. How can that be tied in with resiliency? It's essentially the little things that happen to us, happen to all of us, and the way we decide to react to them and how soon that starts to develop. It's Monday morning and you are running a little late to work. The road you take has construction on it. What are you going to do in that very minute to improve? It's Monday morning and you're a university student who got around 6 hours of sleep the night before for whatever reason. You wake up and you have an 8:30 lecture that lasts about an hour. What are you going to do in that hour to improve? You come out of a bad doctor's appointment. What are you going to do? Every minute, every hour of every day. It's the details in which we go about our life that truly makes resiliency all around us. It's the special stories and moments that we hear about because that person sustained that drive and tenacity for a long period of time. They simply never stopped improving from the moment that challenge came about them. The success you obtain in your life is based primarily around how resilient you are. People must also understand what I'm about to say to fully grasp this notion that successful people is not labeled in terms of where they stand, but how they see themselves and others. It goes back to the idea of reaching what you believe you want to reach. By developing that foundation of quickly reacting to challenges set forth in daily life, it will provide enormous support for you when the larger tests take place. When you have a strong grasp on daily activities to helping yourself improve, seeing the end result and where you want to be becomes more and more clear. Now, I do apologize for the sports references that are coming up. And if there's any athlete who knows there's more to the world than sports, it is me. It's just what I've been accustomed to up until this point in my life. A couple months ago, HBO developed a story solely on the professional basketball player named Kobe Bryant and the events that took place in his life. I just want to touch on something he said before they started getting into his late career and when this significant injury started taking place. But I remember I heard him say this one thing after a reporter asked him what was the transition like from high school student to NBA celebrity in the span of a year. He said this: "When you make a choice to be something and say I'm going to be this, you should not be surprised when you see that. That feeling and knowing has been there the entire time." And he looked stone cold straight into the camera as that's something he powerfully believes. He couldn't make it up. Because of that mindset, a couple weeks ago, Mr. Bryant was cleared by doctors to resume basketball again after undergoing operations on his shoulder and right Achilles tendon in a span of 2 years. Kobe Bryant improved every day from the challenges that came about him, and because of that, the light at the end of the tunnel became clear. Resiliency can also be rubbed off on people and is most powerful when there is support and guidance from other individuals. When you have a collective group overcoming the same obstacle or challenge to reach the same goal, it can create an improbable force. This is demonstrated well through musician groups, employment groups, and most notably sports teams. 1983 North Carolina State men's basketball team was coached by a man named Jim Valvano. Their game-winning basket in Albuquerque, New Mexico to win the national championship is known as one of the greatest moments in sports history. Valvano had a very unique coaching style, but everything he was passionate about revolved around one thing: being resilient. He taught his team to be determined in every action they do from the first practice on. It wasn't something Valvano read that year or decided to test out. That's how he believed success was going to be produced. It was in his blood, in his family. The story I read on this over and over again, it's really quite comical the way he talks about his family, and most notably his dad, and the way they supported him. He would always call his dad during his coaching career if times were tough, as he just needed that someone to talk to. One day, halfway through that 1983 year, it was late at night. He gave his dad a quick call after a tough loss they just had. A few rings went. All of a sudden, his father picked up the phone, and before Valvano said anything, his dad yelled, quote, "My bags are packed. You're gonna make it. I know you are. My bags are packed for New Mexico, and hung up the phone. He said that moment was special. I think that moment's pretty special. It's special because deep down, Rocco Valvano truly knew whatever challenge was going to be in his son's way that year, it didn't matter. He was going to make it. And he did make it, and he won against all odds. That's a perfect example of how someone else can help you improve in a single minute or single hour. You see it all the time, that feel-good storyline of someone being dealt a difficult blow, but overcoming it in the only way that human knew how to. Whether it's tenacity, willpower, force, sometimes even love. Like I touched on, levels of resiliency lie in every single human being on earth. But that's also a rather discouraging statement to think about. The same drive that Edmund Hillary had in climbing Mount Everest in 1953 is the same mindset a 12-year-old boy in Syria has at this very moment. Both people were and are just trying to reach what they believe they want to reach. When you develop that embracing attitude of being resilient, words and sentences like failure, giving up, or not making it become non-existent. If true success is based on how people see themselves and others, and you know you improved from the moment that challenge came about you, then how could you possibly fail? A famous professional football coach was once quoted as saying, "I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, the greatest fulfillment of all that he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in a good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle. It's an interesting topic that can be debated, but then again, can't be debated. It's one that can be developed as a human trait, but then again, how can it be absorbed? You can read a story in the gospel, you can read a piece in the New York Times, you can read the names at any war memorial, but it goes even further. It's a lesson that only can be taught from personal experience, not any of these things, not even a book. Thank you.